Hello everyone, myself Gnanish Reddy from Sri Venkateshwara College of Engineering. So today I'm going to discuss a topic on directory structure and file mounting from the subject of operating systems. So let's start with the contents. Directory structure introduction, operations performed, types of directory structure, single level, two level, tree structured, acyclic directory structure, file system mounting introduction, mount points, mounting process, types of file system mounting, advantages of file system mounting, troubleshooting mounting issues, best practices for directory structure and file mounting, finally the conclusion. So let's start with the introduction with directory structure. Directory can be defined as listing of the related files on the disk. The directory may store some or the entire file attributes. So it means that the directory structure contains related files on the same disk, and it can be entire file attributes. To get the benefit of different file systems on different operating systems, a hard disk can be divided into a number of partitions of different sizes. So the benefits of file systems can be made easy by using a hard disk, which divides the number of partitions on different sizes. The partitions are also called as volumes or mini disks. Each partition must have at least one directory structure in which all the files of the partition can be listed. A directory entry is maintained for each file in the directory, which stores all the information related to that file. View of the directory, which contains files of metadata or a bunch of files. So it's a partition 1 contains directory and files. Similarly, the partition 2 contains directory or files, which totally can be called as a storage, from which it passes through the file attributes, that is the metadata, which contains all the attributes, which is then passed to the directory entry. The operations performed by directory structure. Every directory supports a number of common operations on the file. So directory structure supports many common files or operations such as file creation, search for the file deletion, renaming the file, traversing the files, listing of files. So let's start with the types of directory system. Single level directory system. The simplest method is to have a one big list of all the files on the disk. The entire system will contain only one directory, which is supposed to mention all files present in the file system. The directory contains one entry per each file present on the file system. So it is as simple as that. The simplest method is to have one big list, that is on all the files of the disk. The entire system will contain only one directory in this type of directory system. So here's a typical view. This type of directories can be used for a simple system. So it's the JPG, methods, OS docs, MP4, JTP text, and everything will be stored in the files. So let's discuss the advantages and disadvantages of single level directory. The advantages goes like this. Implementation is very simple. If the sizes of the files are very small, then the searching becomes faster. File creation, searching, deletion is very simple since we have only one directory. Implementation being very simple, it also includes sizes of the files being very small, which helps in searching easily. And the file creation, deletion, and searching is very simple with just like a tab. So let's discuss the disadvantages. We cannot have two files with the same name. Same named two files or more cannot be considered here. The directory may be very big, therefore searching for a file may take much time. Protection cannot be implemented for multiple users. There are no ways to group same kind of files, so grouping of similar kind of files is not possible here. Choosing the unique name for every file is a bit complex and limits the number of files in the single level directory. So let's discuss about the two level directory structure. In two level directory systems, we can create a separate directory for each user. There is one master directory which contains separate directories dedicated to each user. For each user, there is a different directory present at the second level containing group of user files. The system doesn't let a user to enter in other users directory without permission. So here there's a typical view: user 1, user 2, and user 3. So those are the master directories. In user 1, it is divided into several other directories which is dedicated to each user, that is file entry, file entry, file entry. Similarly in user 2 and user 3, and in these file entries the files can be stored. Let's go to tree structure directory. In tree structure directory, Any directory entry can be either be a file or subdirectory. Tree structured directory system overcomes the drawbacks of two-level directory system. The similar kind of files can now be grouped in one directory. So in two-level directory system, similar files cannot be grouped, but in this tree structured directory, it is possible. Each user has its own directory and it cannot enter in others users directory. However, user has the permission to read the root's data, but he cannot write or modify this. Only administrator of the system has complete access of root directory. So here each user has its own directory and it will not be possible to enter in others users directory, but he can modify or write the root's data of the other user with the permission. Searching is more efficient in this directory structure and the current working directory is used. A file can be accessed by the path either relative or absolute. Absolute path is the path of the file with respect to the root directory of the system, while relative path is the path with respect to the current working directory of the system. In tree structured directory systems, the user is given privilege to create files as well as directories. So absolute path can be with respect to the root directory and relative path can be the current working directory of the system. So the root level directories are home, bin and libraries, which is further divided into files and subdirectories which can be stored in the file attributes, and similarly later it can be used for the storing of different files. So we'll discuss about acyclic directory structures now. The tree structured directory system does not allow same file to exist in multiple directories. Therefore, sharing is a major concern in tree structured directory system. We cannot provide sharing by making the directory an acyclic graph. In this system, two or more directory entry can point to the same file or subdirectory. That file or subdirectory is shared between two directory entries. So in tree structure directory, the directory does not allow to store the same file with similar type of data, but here in this system, two or more directory entry can point to the same file or subdirectory. These kinds of directory graphs can be used, can be linked using aliases. We can have multiple paths for same file. Links can either be symbolic, logical, or hard link, that is physical. Acyclic directory structures, if a file gets deleted in acyclic graph structured directory system, then in the case of soft link the file gets deleted and we are left with dangling pointer. In case of hard link, the actual file will be deleted only if all the references to it gets deleted. So user 1 contains desktop projects and some of the other projects. Similarly, the user 2, which is shared between both of them, user 1 and user 2, which contains the file attributes later, which is then stored in the form of files. So let's talk about the file system mounting, its introduction. Operating system organizes files on a disk using file system, and these file systems differ with operating systems. We have greater number of file systems available for Linux. One of the greatest benefits of Linux is that we can access data on many different file systems, even if these file systems are from different operating system. In order to access the file system in the Linux, first we need to mount it. Mounting refers to making it a group of files in a file system structure accessible to user or group of users. It is done by attaching a root directory from one file system to another. This is the other directory or device appears as a directory or similar to that system. So it is like operating system organizes files, or file system. We'll have a greater number of file systems available on Linux. And in this, first we have to use it on the Linux, first we have to use the mounting process, which is used to make a group of files in a file system structure, attaching to the root directory from one file system to another. Mounting may be local or remote. In local mounting, it connects disk drivers as one machine, such as they behave as single logical system, while the remote mount uses NFS, that is network file system, to connect to directories on other machine so that they can be used as if they are a part of user file system. Opposite of mounting is unmounting. That is, commands for the same will be discussed later, or it is removal of access or those files or folders. It was the overview of a mounting is the mount points. Mount points are directories in the existing file hierarchy where the file systems are attached. Each mounted file system becomes accessible through its corresponding mount point. Mount points can be located anywhere in the directory structure. So its mount points are just like a directories in existing file hierarchy. Each mounted file system becomes accessible through corresponding mount points. So is a typical view of that. The root is divided into bin. etc, sbin, user, variable, etc. So let's see about the mounting process. The operating system checks in the file system is already mounted. If not mounted, the file system is attached to the desired mount point. The operating system updates the directory structure to include the newly mounted file. So first the operating system checks if the file is already mounted. If it's not mounted, it will be attached to the mount point, and later the directory structure includes newly mounted file. Here's the structure or typical view of that. The user space in that, if it contains a file name, it is then taken to the directory structure, that is the kernel memory, and it is then stored to the secondary storage where it has the structure of the directory and the file control block. um, Types of file system mounting: hard mount, soft mount, and network mount. So the hard mount is the system waits until the file system is mounted successfully before continuing. That is, it will not continue or it will not process until the system is completely mounted. Soft mount: the system allows other operations to proceed even if the file system fails to mount. In this system, even if the operations is not passed or if it's not processed, the file system fails to mount, the system allows the operations to proceed, or it will work as usually irrespective of the file system if it's failed or worked. Network mount: mounting file systems located on remote servers over a network. Advantages of file mounting system: increase the storage capacity, enhance the data security, simplify data management. So mounting allows multiple file systems to be combined and accessed as a single logical unit. Enhance data security. Mounting enables the use of access control and permissions on mounted file systems. Mounting makes it easier to manage and organize large amounts of data. So the traditional file-based system is shown here. Customer orders, invoice programs, and it will later be used for the invoice. So mounting allows multiple files to be combined, and it also allows the permissions on the mounted file systems to access it. It will be very easy to accessing. Mounting makes it easier to manage, organize large amounts of data with the help of file attributes or storage capacity. So the troubleshooting mounting issues. So the mounting issues for the troubleshooting are: it checks the file system integrity, ensure the file system is in a good state and not corrupted. Verify mount point availability, ensure the chosen mount point is not already in use. So before using the mount point, you have to ensure that it's not used. Check permissions, ensure the user has necessary permissions to mount the file system. Even before checking, or even before checking for the availability of the mount point, make sure that the permission is taken from the user. Best practices for directory structure and mounting: plan directory structure in advance, use meaningful names, regularly review and optimize. So design a logical and scalable directory structure that suits your needs. So choose descriptive names for directory structures and files to improve organization and searchability. Periodically review and recognize the directory structure to maintain efficiency. So finally, the conclusion. Directory structure organizes files and directories in a hierarchical manner. We know that it will just organize the files in hierarchical manner, such as attributes, and later it will be stored in the form of files. Mounting allows the file systems to be attached to a specific directories in the file hierarchy. So mounting is just attaching the files to the directories in the file hierarchy. Proper directory structure and mounting practices improve file management and data access efficiency. We have also seen the advantages and the efficiencies which helps in storing the data and its management. Thank you.